welcome to admissions classes. My name is Ayaka, and I am a consultant with LSAT Unplugged. Today, I did want to take some time to talk about letters of recommendation. I think the people here are kind of looking to, hopefully, I think most of us are looking to apply next cycle, so starting in the fall. So for your consideration, and maybe you've already had conversations with the people that you are getting your letters from, but kind of what kind of conversations you want to have with your recommenders, what you want to ask them to write about, so we can talk about that here. I did want to, it's going to be more of a spiel than a presentation. Don't think there's much to present on, but letters of rec, they are something that, are easy to kind of knock off your list of things to do in your application, but we want to make sure that we're doing it strategically. So some of the things that we want to consider for letters of rec: who is writing your letters of rec? Many schools will ask for an academic letter. If you've been out of college for quite a bit, many times schools will take professional letters as well. So people who've been out of school, who've been working, that may be a great way to kind of showcase. If maybe you don't have the highest GPA, that may be a great way to showcase how you are in the workplace, and how you've matured and grown since graduating college. So really, we want to consider who and what you want the letter to say. We get the question a lot, I've been out of school for a very long time, and I haven't kept in touch with my professors. That's very common, and I'm sure many professors get that note from students who graduated a couple years ago and they haven't kept in touch and they want a letter of rec. Make sure that you're having a conversation via email, via Zoom, via phone call, in some sort of way with the professor that you want to ask, if you want to go down that route, if they can write a strong letter for you. I think it is a hard conversation to have, but it is a more, how do I say this? Like a better conversation to have earlier than later, right? So if you're looking for, I'm sure everyone's looking for a strong letter of recommendation, and to kind of touch base with your professor if you're reaching out to them for the first time in a long while, to ask after you've had a conversation or two, to say, hey, do you think you can write a strong letter of recommendation for me? Most professors know what a strong recommendation letter looks like and what a sort of average letter of rec looks like. So, you can gauge it that way. And if the answer to that is absolutely yes, I think that's a great, that would be a great thing to have in your application. If the professor is kind of iffy and they're like, I would have to kind of look back at the work that you've done, or we would need to have another conversation, that's a good answer as well. You don't want to end up with a letter of rec that's lackluster and kind of like, oh, they just put their name down on a template. So that's one. For professional letters of rec, I think what would be beneficial is either someone you've worked under or someone you've worked with closely. So maybe it is a colleague that, might be in a different position than you are, but you had to work closely with, or someone, maybe your direct boss, maybe your boss's boss, maybe. So kind of consider where in that organization you are getting that letter from. And my ask usually to whenever somebody in a professional setting is writing a letter of rec, I think it is good to have them introduce themselves in that first paragraph. So maybe help them get that ball rolling Usually I say, hey, can you make sure that they know? And sometimes people move positions as they get promoted, or they go to other companies, or they retire, that they mark the time that they worked with you. So, say I worked with Ayaka Chin from 2017 to 2020, let's say, right? And kind of mark that time, and then in what relation they were to you. So I was the head of sales for X, Y, and Z. Ayaka worked in this department, right? And so we can kind of understand where that relationship came in, before you go into that professional letter. So I think it's a good ask to make sure that your professional letter marks that relationship. And then, so at that point, any questions? It's probably very straightforward. All right. And then second part is a little bit more of the heavy lifting that you might want to have you might want to think about your application as a whole before you are asking for letters of rec. Letters of rec are some of the first couple things that you really need to start on, meaning you need to have that conversation early on and give a couple months of lead time for your professor or your boss or your coworker to write that letter for you. Sorry. And then kind of, so you have to have a little bit of runway to let them write the letter and turn the letter into the LSAC website. The turn-in process is not difficult. It's pretty straightforward. You have to put in a little bit of information about your letter of rec writer, and the letter of rec person has to kind of respond to this email that is triggered by LSAC once you input all that information in. However, people are busy. Professors tend to write letters of rec during the summer or Thanksgiving break or winter break. During the semester, professors are busy, so it's really hard to kind of ask them in the middle of the semester and say, hey, I need a letter in 4 weeks, right? So we really want to give them that leeway. If you're looking to apply, right as applications open in the fall, it is best if you ask in the spring and have them turn it in during the summer, so you have it ready in your LSAC account. Now, going to the more important piece about what to have written about yourself in the letters. I think you have to take a look at what you intend to write, or if you've already written your personal statement, what you've written there, any optional essays you've written, and see if there's any gaps, right? You may be writing an addendum, let's say for your GPA, which important, but also if you have a professor who can attest to how you are in the classroom, for example, you are always prepared, you know the material, and you are always offering maybe another perspective in the discussion. Those are important things, and those are things that may not show in your GPA, right? And so that may be something that you can ask your professor and say, hey, I don't have the highest GPA going into law school. However, I think I excelled in your class. Can you write to how I participated in discussions in class, and kind of emphasize on my ability to, feel different points of views and X, Y, and Z. So, I think you can get pretty prescriptive and ask people to write certain things. That doesn't necessarily mean they will write it, but it is kind of a suggestion of like, hey, I would love it if you can emphasize, how well I did on this project, for example, or how awesome my honors thesis was, or anything of that nature. So I think you can put that ask out there. It's still up to the writer to include that in the letter, but I think it is generous to kind of go in, and also you're advocating for yourself and saying, hey, these are the things that I really want to amp up in my application, to make it holistic and make it a little bit more well-rounded. Professional letters as well, you can also write about, you can ask your letters, I'm sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. So you can ask your letter of rec writer to talk about, your work ethic, how detail oriented you are. Maybe you're super quick on your feet. Maybe you're a great public speaker. All of those things, good qualities to have. I think it's better than just saying this person will be a great candidate for law school. Like, that's a little lackluster. So, asking people to focus on certain qualities about yourself in the workforce would be a little bit more punchy, and I think would result in a better letter of rec. So I think those are the big things that we really want to think about when we're asking for letters of rec. Really think about timing, how much time, and no matter how much time you give, many people will wait until that last 2 weeks. So make sure you are sending reminders to your writers and saying, hey, like, this is when I want to turn in my application. I would love to get your letter in on XYZ date. So kind of give them that grace and make sure you're sending them reminders. And I get a lot of questions about having letters of rec written for each school. So they're changing the name of the school for each letter. I think the same with people who are writing personal statements that are tailored, or like, you're changing the name of the school for each school that you're for personal statements. It can allow for mistakes. And as much as we think that mistakes don't happen, it happens every year where people sent the wrong letter of rec, people sent the wrong personal statement, happens every year. So, maybe for your top choice schools, you could have your letter writers to create like specific school specific letters. But that does require your writer to also kind of tailor the language a bit to the school as well. So know what you're asking for. Also make sure, if that's happening, also be sure to get a general letter as well. So it's not a letter that you can only use for one school. Like, maybe there is one that you can only use for one school, but small tweaks, it could be also used for other schools. So make sure you do that legwork and be upfront with what you're asking for. And like I said, second big thing is really know where the gaps are in your application and have your letters of rec writers kind of fill in those gaps the best they can. And it's better if you do those asks ahead of time as well. I know we have a couple questions from Jeff. I know we got that as a FAQ, but I do want to ask this room any questions. It doesn't have to be about letters of rec, anything about admissions. Any questions out there? We're good. All right. So I know we got a couple FAQ questions. First one, how important is the addendum when applying to law school? That really depends on your application. So for example, if you have a super high GPA, kind of not the greatest LSAT score, and there's, you had connection issues, you had trouble with the proctoring, and that would be a good addendum to write, to say, hey, there was a proctoring issue, I had a bad connection, I lost time on the test, therefore I didn't score where I wanted to score. That's a good addendum. Or if you fell ill during your 4 years undergrad, and so you can clearly see that there's a GPA dip, that would probably be a good addendum to write. There's also schools will ask you to write specific addendas, and that may be different per school. Some schools will ask if you've been released, fired, restructured out from a job. Tell us about what was going on there. I call that an addenda because it's part of this list of things that they're asking for. So that would probably fall under addendas. I know another school was asking for if, you know, like if you had more than a 10-point jump in your LSAT score over the course of multiple tests, kind of explain what was going on there. There are schools that don't require addendums, and they're like, we'll just look at everything. So really think about if it's an open invitation to write an addendum. Don't go crazy and write 10 pages of an addendum. We've seen it before. It just sounds like a lot. And if it's 10 pages, I think it's too much that you're explaining. So, and be very upfront. The importance of an addendum, if you're trying to write an addendum for a single bad grade, I don't think that's worth your time. But it can give more context to what is going on in your application. So if you think you haven't explained yourself enough with your application, I think it is good to write an addendum. And then the second one, what should I expect in law school? Well, I think you should expect to learn about the law, and I hope that is pretty straightforward. But if we're talking about, you know, what is in your first year, second year, third year, many admissions officers will be talking about that first year, and it is your core courses. There are some schools that have interesting core courses. So I know the Ancient and Scalia School, they have an econ course that they require all of their students to take, like econ in the law or something like that. And it's a very particular course, and it creates like a foundation of knowledge. So that first year really is about that foundation. It's about you know, doing the core courses that the school requires. And then starting in the second year, you can kind of go into your elective courses. And the schools are different, so the elective courses that they provide will be different. And that can vary on location, the type of school that you're going to, and you know, that can also depend on what kind of clinics they provide, centers that they have that they're associated with. So that can really color your law school experience. So really, I know a lot of people are looking into, you know, the top 14, the top schools to go to, but really look into what courses you're interested in. I know many people, you know, write about which type of law they want to go into in their personal statement, and that's great. But when you do that, make sure you look into the coursework. And if you're really serious about what you want to pursue, look into the coursework, look into the course catalog, the professors who are in that field, see what they're publishing, and kind of be aware of where that school excels. You know, if you're like the law school in Hawaii, they're very big on the environmental law. And it doesn't mean you have to pursue that career, but you want to know what courses are being offered. And if you're looking to do like IP law, and you know, and of course the University of Hawaii is going to have that, but it might not be as robust as other schools that have a real strength in that area. So that's kind of what you want to look at when you look at, you know, what to expect in law school, and think about what you want out of the law school experience. All right. I know those two were the FAQ questions that we got in email. Any other questions out there? Quiet group today. Alrighty. Well, we will call it a night. Thank you all for joining. I will not be here next week, so I will be traveling, but hopefully we will restart after that. So thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a good night. Thank
Hey,
you.
Rebecca, I just had a quick question actually.
Sure.
So I am almost actually done with my essay. I was a little busy with starting a
No
new
worries.
job, so I didn't really get to finalize in it. So I'll have that, I guess, in 2 weeks. But for the letter recommendations,
Yeah.
I just was thinking really quick off the top of my head. I have at least one. I have another one from. I have two jobs. I'll try to reach out to some professors, but I've just been. I mean, I haven't been. It's only been a year since I graduated, but I guess I can ask one guy who, one professor who I knew really well, and he was really nice. I just don't know if it'll be like as personable, like you were mentioning, kind of in this class. That's all I wanted to ask.
I think you should start the conversation and see if he, remembers you being in class and all of that. I think also it would be great if you could have like references of like the work that you've done in the course with that professor. And I say it's always better to go see the professor. I don't know if you're in a situation where you can go see them. But Zoom call, phone call, email, that's all available to you. So I would reach out first and kind of talk through how you want the letter to be, and kind of update on your life, saying, hey, like I'm looking to apply to law school, and I want to pursue X, Y, and Z. I really enjoyed your class. This is the classwork that I did, and this was impactful. Would you be able to write a letter of rec for me? And then, start that conversation. And then I think you can get a gauge of like whether this person can write a strong one for you. And I think it's worth your while to do that kind of research for your professor, of your professor, and see if they can write a strong one for you. And really ask you. I mean, you can go ahead and ask them, like after this information, do you feel like you can write a strong letter of rec for me? They're used to kind of these out of the blue requests, I would think. So I don't think, just go in with confidence. If they say no, I think it's a bullet dodged rather than a missed opportunity. So, but maybe have a couple. Do you have a couple professors lined up?
Yeah, I have one. I guess I have three. One of them was the director of our criminal justice program.
Yeah.
Kind of the coordinator for the co-op program, and also criminal justice coordinator just in regards to like the graduate program. So I'll reach out to her. She was also very nice. I'll reach out to our director of the criminal justice program. Why not deal with it? And I'll just let you know in 2 weeks what each one had to say, I guess.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And it's have the conversation earlier and then later is probably where we're at right there.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.